right, good morning, good morning. This morning we are starting a new class. This will be going for probably about a month or so, maybe longer. I really hope to make this a very discussion-based class. If you don't know me, my name's Josh Hone. I'm one of the deacons here. And we are going to start off with what's up here. What is this? Y'all recognize this? What is this? The Beatitudes, right? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Y'all had to memorize all of this at one point, right? Raise your hand if you've memorized these at one point. You had to have memorized these at some point in your Bible class, Bible school career. So yeah, let me just read these. I think this is a great way to get this class started. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. All right, so I want a lot of feedback. I want a lot of discussion in this class. Here's an easy one. I'm going to start you off with an easy one on Sunday morning. What is the purpose of the Beatitudes? Why did Jesus do this for us? I know we're very familiar with these verses. Do they just sound good? What is the point of all of this? Why do we have them, huh? Encouragement to what? To keep going, okay. That's kind of along the way that I wanted to do that. When he says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God, what's that mean to you? Why does he tell you that? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Okay. 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 That already had it? That already have a pure heart? We're kind of getting to where I wanted to go. Okay. So if you're this is like a talent that you're born with, and hey, good for you. If you're not, Is that what he means? Okay, what's he mean? I see you shaking your head. Learn it. Yes, this is calling us to act. This is calling us to grow. He doesn't just say, blessed are the pure in heart, because, hey, you're lucky. If that's you, then that's great. If that's not you, okay. We are called to grow in all these skills, okay? So that's kind of like also where Becky was going there. But let me tell you, there's one in particular that always stood out to me as really intimidating. I don't know if y'all have ever had this experience, but this is what we're going to spend the next month talking about, and it's this one, blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers. How do you do that? How do you be a peacemaker? What does that word even mean, peacemaker? It's like if you're a housemaker, then I know what you do. If you're a TV maker, I know what you do. But if you're a peacemaker, what do you do? Yeah, Becky. Okay. You remain calm. Try not to instigate. Yeah. Okay. This is a very practical skill, right? You learn this so much by experience, right? You learn this so much by situation by situation. This is why I wanted us to be together and talk to each other, because we're going to talk about how to be a peacemaker. And there's so much tactical stuff. There's so many techniques that we can do but I think we can all benefit from hearing how each other do this, okay? I think a lot of our teaching focuses on like doctrine and theory of things. This is going to be a very practical class. How do we practice Christianity? Cheryl, go ahead. Yes, yes. Yes, yes. Sometimes, yes, it is definitely learning by experience. And that's why I hope we can learn from each other's experience, because if you had something I can learn from, I want to know about it before I get to that situation, okay? We talk in the jail a lot about how, that there's the school of hard knocks and there's the learning on the street, and I'm always telling them, hey, no, there's another way to learn. Like, you can learn from Christ and the Word of God first, and then put that into practice, and then you don't have to learn the hard way, Yeah, go ahead.
I would say you have to be a unique person who people can trust, that they can be able to come to you to give them guidance in order to solve your problems.
Yes. Well, okay, so he said we need to be a unique person, someone people can trust. Does the church today need peacemakers? Do we need peacemakers? That means we have to be people who others can trust, right? We need to be people who are known, who I can come to you with a problem, and if we don't have it, then every conflict just escalates where? To who? It just goes to the elders, right? Like if we have no peacemakers, then as soon as you and I just have a discussion, boom, it just, hey, let's go talk to the elders about this. I don't really think it has to go to that, probably most of the time that we have conflicts, right? But we can have peacemakers in our midst, and really we are all called to be these peacemakers. So I'm going to say it's not necessarily a unique person, but it should be a lot of us. I mean, if this is what Jesus is calling us to be, then we need to be trusted among each other as peacemakers. Like, I can go to you, I can go to you and say, hey, look, I've got this problem. We won't always have that level of trust, with everybody, but it should not be rare. We should be, this is a skill that we should really be trying to develop, right? Okay, somebody else had their hand up, I think. Yeah. Oh, want and desire. Yes, absolutely. And there's lots of areas of our life that teach us this, right? Parents, do you learn how to be a good peacemaker from your experience with your kids? Absolutely you do, right? Because there's conflict that gets brought into your life that you never thought you were going to be tested in that way, and you will constantly be asked to do it. When you're working at a job, guess what? Is that an area where you need to learn and develop peacemakers? God bless the people who have to deal with the public, okay? I don't have a job where I have to deal with the public, but God bless those people who have to deal with the public, people who work in the theme parks and everything, that you have people who are there on your vacation. They come from all over the world to be at these theme parks. They got all kinds of problems, and you have to sit there and deal with it on minimum wage. Ooh, God bless those people who have to deal with the public. Our work situations teach us a lot about how to be peacemakers. Yeah, Neil.
I was going to say, all of these Beatitudes, Jesus is really the start of his ministry, and he's kind of returning what people thought of religion on its head.
Yes.
It's the absolute opposite of everything you thought your whole life.
Yes. Well, that's another thing that I was interested in, because I have always thought of the Beatitudes as like the beginning of the new stuff, like the new covenant. This is where it starts. Almost all of our examples are going to be from the Old Testament. So to your point, yeah, it's turning what they had on their head, but it's also stuff that was always there and they just never emphasized it. You're going to see a lot of stuff. Most of the things that we're going to talk about come from the Old Testament. My examples here. Okay. All right. It's also a part of leadership, right? Being a peacemaker is a part of leadership. You will find the good managers, the good leaders in your work, in the church, they really can't be bad at this, right? This is something where you are going to have conflicts brought to you, and you have to be able to do this. So this is especially, something we have, the education plan that we have over the next year. We want to be called to develop our leadership skills over the next year. This is a big part of this. And I will say this is also a big part of how we achieve and stay unified. Right? Unity comes from making peace. Unity comes from maintaining peace. There's so many scriptural tactics and techniques that we can study that make us peacemakers. That's really what I actually developed this class with midlife Christers in mind. That's the kind of like the midlife age that meets downstairs. Did not get to give it there. Gave it in the youth group class first, okay? Then I gave it in the jail next. So y'all are actually the third group of people that I have given this to. And but I in both of those situations, I didn't necessarily get the feedback and the comments and the here's my experience part. So I'm hopeful that I can get that with y'all, because I know y'all have decades as Christians, decades doing this well, but I want to know what are your good strengths. So we're gonna, hopefully this will stretch beyond the 4 lessons that I have to be 5 or 6 weeks. Now, if I was to ask you what is Christian peacemaking, probably one particular passage comes to mind. What is Christian conflict resolution? If I was to ask you, what comes to mind? What's that, Latoya? Matthew 18, that's right. Christian conflict resolution is go to your brother, right? And then if your brother doesn't hear you, then what? Then you take someone with you, and then if that doesn't work, then you what? Then you take it to the whole church. I'm going to tell you right now, that is not Christian conflict resolution. I can give you 30, 40 things that we can do before it gets there. That's like the very end of the process, okay? Very, very end. There's so many other things that we can do before that point to resolve conflicts, okay? So let's see here. First clicker works. How to be attitude. How to be attitude, that's what this class is called, how to be a peacemaker. Our first section today, I don't anticipate that we will finish this. There is so many ways that you can be a peacemaker by avoiding conflict entirely. Yeah, Calvin. Okay. Yep. Well, I will tell you, and people will skip it because why? They don't feel like they know what to do, right? So the second lesson, which I hope we get to in like 2 or 3 weeks, is dealing with conflict. So we're going to talk about this class is structured with ways that you can avoid conflict, then ways that you can deal with conflict, then ways that you can basically be a peacemaker in your relationships, because your relationships with others, that's where you have really the most conflict, the people that you're around most of the time, your family, your coworkers. Those close relationships need kind of like another level of peacemaking. That's who you're around a lot, and so those need special attention. And then the fourth lesson is peacemakers make peace between man and God. Peacemakers make peace between man and God, and just seeing how that is such a major theme of the Bible that we maybe don't even recognize. But peacemakers make peace between man and God. Somebody had their hand up. Yes. Okay. Okay.
I would go out, and it was amazing to me that even that age, people, the adults, were the ones that didn't really
Yeah.
rather. I mean, yeah, I slowed down but when they would do something really bad, like steal someone's pencil or something, I would call them out,
Yeah.
and I was real nice about it.
Yeah.
And I think I helped a few, not nearly as many as I didn't help, but that was the way I was being brought up.
Okay.
Help these people.
Okay. So that actually hits my first avoiding conflict. Yeah, go ahead.
First thing I ask myself
Is it worth it? Is it worth the conflict? Hey, as a parent, you know you don't, every time your kid does something, you don't say something, right? I've had to develop that rule where it can't be the first time, right? The first time they do something, I fix it, right? They left something on the counter, they didn't do a chore, I fix that, right? Because I don't, as a parent, I need to kind of save my own, the interactions that they have with me need to be about really important things, serious things, things that are repetitively happening that I need to deal with, or urgent things. And I can't. It's kind of like you have some kind of a budget in a bank. Like I can't just burn it all on the little things or the things that happen one at a time, right? I have to be careful about how I eke it out. So yes, I'm judicious about how I engage in conflict. Now to your problem right there, let's talk about that, because I think that really hits my first tactic that I wanted to talk about. The beginning, we're going to be in Proverbs a lot. If you want to turn in your Bible to Proverbs, we're going to be flipping around a lot in Proverbs. The beginning of strife is like letting out water, so quit before the quarrel breaks out. I get two techniques for this that are really important to being a peacemaker out of this one verse. And one of them is what she was just talking about here. Conflicts need to be dealt with urgently. Christian conflict resolution, Christian peacemaking, does not sit on a problem and wait until it gets worse. Okay? You call, and so like to your point, if somebody is stealing something and you see it, you will call it out because you don't want it to get worse. Like if that doesn't get dealt with, then it can turn into a fight, right? Or it can turn into retribution, or it can turn into, hey, I'm going to tell my friends, and now we're going to get in trouble about this, right? So I get two things out of this one right here, which is like one of them is Christian conflict deals with situations urgently. So there's this concept here in this verse of escalation, right? When something is strife, just a problem between me and you, it's still not a quarrel. It's still not, we're not in open conflict yet, but there's a point where it could escalate to that, right? Christian peacemaking values looking for those situations and dealing with them with urgency. We care about this, right? That's what a good peacemaker does. And so how do you have to do that? Well, obviously, one of those things is you got to have your eyes open, right? You got to know what your actions are doing, what your words are doing with other people. Be aware. That's a problem for me. A lot of the time, I will do something and have no idea that it has actually caused a problem with somebody else. Or I've got 10 problems, and that's the 11th one, you know. That's not something that I'm going to try to deal with. But yeah, urgency is a real technique. Now let's see if we can get in some stories. I'm sure there's a lot of stories we can think about, or some tactics or techniques. How do y'all? Can you think of a time when you settled something that was small before it could get big? You know, something like that. We'll start talking some stories. I mean, this happens at work a lot, right? This is kind of a work situation. We all have things where, let's say you're like training somebody new at your job, right? And you can see the way that they're doing that is going to lead to another problem. So you're going to try to help them resolve it, right? In my job in IT, technology, you know, we're writing software, we're planning out big systems, work for a DVC, Vacation Club, that's Disney's timeshare business. So I'm doing all these commercial systems, like how do we price things? How do we, provide offers for things? How do we track what people are charged for and how they paid? How do we book and sell these things? How do we basically have a product catalog so that you can know what your products are that are available? And so in that role, I'm like teaching other leads that we're bringing on. Thankfully, we've got like 3 other people to come in and work on all the stuff that I was working on, so now I'm kind of sitting over them. But they need experience, and they need to recognize where the problems are, and so then I can help them avoid them, right? Code reviews, that's something that we do a lot in the software engineering world. Like the software that people write can have problems, okay? And so I'm trying to read what they write so that I can get ahead of problems like that. Yeah, Steve, you had your hand up? Mm-hmm. Right. Right, right. Yeah, I think we kind of get put off peacemaking because of, anticipating, well, what if it goes wrong? Well, isn't it better to just let it slide and hope things work out? Because if I get involved, then something might go wrong. Yeah, but then like what this is saying is, it's better to prevent. So that the answer to that is be a good peacemaker, be able to get it right. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I used to work with internet company for years.
Uh-huh.
We get calls with people coming angry, cuss you out, so forth. We were trained, don't argue back. Arguing back would escalate it.
Okay.
So we calm them, we talk to calm them down, and then once they calm down, we're able to work with them.
Yep. And so, on urgency, how many of y'all have ever had a problem with a technology device that you have, an iPad, a phone, or something, and you're like, I wish they would fix that, right? So that's a big part of how we, in the technology world, we decide what to work on, is what are people going to be really mad about? What are people really mad about right now? Okay, that goes to the top of the list. Let's fix that. Let's urgently care about fixing that problem. Yeah, I've seen a couple of hands. Wesley? Yeah. Yep. Okay, so that was a situation where urgency would have helped, right? Because if we urgently took care of her need that she was talking about, then the conflict would not have escalated. Great example. Yeah, Calvin.
There are certain large principles
Mm-hmm.
that we apply to peacemaking, and Christ was very good being profound in pointing out the large principles.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Peter cut off Malchus' ear, he said, "Put away that sword."
Okay.
You know that I have angels to protect me, an army of angels. Put away that sword, and who lives by the sword dies by the sword.
Right.
So he taught him, he didn't just tell him not to do it, he taught him principle as well.
Yes, and he did that urgently, right? Jesus did not wait to put on Malchus's ear, right? He wasn't like negotiating, like, I can do this for you, but you got to scratch my back too, right? Jesus said, hey, there's going to be a problem between this whole group of armed people and Peter if I do not fix this right away. So urgently dealing with the problem, yes. Becky.
For several years worked for a fidelity surety bond company and was assistant underwriter under a gentleman who did not like to be corrected.
Yeah.
And I learned very quickly that if I found a mistake when I was inputting his work into the computer, that if I went to him and I said, I'm not understanding this, could you help me with this? And like it was my issue instead of his issue.
Yeah. Okay.
He was, oh, sure, and showing me,
Okay.
oh, I didn't do that right, did I? And
That sounds like a great tactic. So what Becky was talking about is, someone who's difficult to deal with, but you still have problems with them that you have to deal with. You can rephrase it. You can say you can basically say, hey, can you help me with this, instead of acting like they did something wrong, right? So that's a good way to urgently deal with an issue, because you're not. Otherwise, you would kind of sit around. You'd be like, oh, I don't want to talk to this guy. Oh, I'm intimidated, right? And so this problem is just going to sit out there, and it's not going to get resolved. But you know him, and you know how to approach him, and knowing how to approach others can let us urgently deal with issues, because you know the low conflict way to get their attention, to get their mind on a problem. Yeah.
I think a lot of times a person's personality contributes to how they deal with conflict.
Okay.
Because I know I used to be really shy and kind of timid, but in the workplace, I realized that kind of personality was going to help me.
Right.
Especially in solving conflict. So I had to become more assertive and learn how to speak up. And my way of dealing with stuff, I present policy and regulations to a person. I say, hey, I noticed this, but in accordance with whatever,
Mm-hmm.
this is how how
Okay.
I dealt with in handling conflict.
Okay. Okay, so here's the second principle I see out of this. Christian peacemaking values prevention. Okay? So not only does it talk about when we try to deal with the problem, we try to deal with the small problems before they become big, but you also see in here that, like, letting out water, what's that mean? That part, like, once water gets out, my physics and my chemistry say it doesn't come back in. There's no bounce back. You can't roll that back in. It's spilled. It's gone, right? So we have to look at conflict like that, right? We have to look at conflict like that and value prevention. Tactics and techniques that prevent conflict are good Christian peacemaking, right? And I'm sure you can think of things like the marriage relationship has probably full of them, things that you do to prevent conflict with your spouse, right? Your spouse has certain things that they do not want you doing, right? They have certain things that they don't want you saying. So you will not say those things, and you will, it's like proactive. I'm not even going to do that because I value preventing conflict in my relationship, right? Anybody have any conflict resolution we want to talk about there? Yeah, you've had your hand up for a while. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. I let you sit so long you didn't even think I was ever coming back here, did you? Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's a hard one to manage, right? If you're passionate about something, but you have to be humble too. Those two things seem like they conflict. Like you want to do things strongly one way, but then you get pulled to do them another way. Okay, somebody else had their hand up. Go ahead, Calvin.
My great grandmother always tidbits of wisdom. One of her favorites was, "Don't cry in the split vision."
Okay.
The point is, stop being angry about something that, like, the water is already gone.
Okay.
You're not getting back. But what you can do is learn from that and prevent more water from being lost. I had a manager tell me, "Don't bring me a conflict, bring me the solution."
Yep, I've heard that too. That doesn't help, but yeah, that's, yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Okay. Right. Yep. Yeah. Prevention has a lot of aspects to it, and part of it is gentleness, right? Because when you try to prevent conflict, there's the quick, harsh way to get to what you want, and then there's the gentle way that takes more out of you and can take more time. And those are two different ways to approach it. But definitely the gentleness can prevent conflict. Yeah, Becky?
Grandfather was very strong but very mild-mannered, and he was frequently called to mediate problems in churches and in the Kentucky area there. But at home, anytime my grandmother got going on something, he'd just say, "Well, you might be right," and give her a hug, and she was just kind of,
Yep.
what can you say at that?
Yep.
So he totally diffused the situation just by those two words.
But also by knowing her, right?
Yes.
And knowing, like, that's a big part of prevention. You can't prevent something that you can't see coming. So you have to, to the extent that you can, you got to use that information, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Scott. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So yes. Yep. Okay. Any other comments? We got another one. We got lots of these coming. Okay. Be reserved. Be reserved. This one is not going to be. We're kind of starting off with some of the easier ones here. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 3. It is an honor for a man to keep aloof from strife, but every fool will be quarreling. Okay? Be reserved. I just call this one be reserved because it's kind of like we don't have to attend every argument we get invited to, do we? You know? People will be inviting us into conflict. People will be trying to pull you in to conflict. We don't have to attend every argument that people invite you to, right? Someone can say something and you can let it pass, you know. Words are easier like that than actions. Somebody saying something to you is a lot easier to deal with than them doing something to you, right? Acting honorably, this verse kind of tells you what acting honorably is, and it's very different from how a worldly concept of honor is, right? The worldly concept of honor says you can't insult me, you can't take me down, right? Because I am where I'm supposed to be, and you can't take me down from there. And if we have to get in a fight or an argument to deal with that, then that's what we're going to do, right? Bible defines honor very differently. This is a part of that, right? It's honorable to not get pulled into that so much. You know, it's honorable to not be fighting like everybody else will be fighting. I mean, you've probably seen, even this week, probably you've seen somebody have an argument or a fight that they really shouldn't have had, right? I'm sure we can think of arguments like that. I don't even know if I want to spend this much time telling the story, but one time I was taking my daughter, she was very young, this is more than 10 years ago, to Disney. We were in line for a ride, and she lost a shoe or something like that. She was at that age where you just lose shoes, and then you have to go back and find them. And she was in a princess outfit. And so we were in line for Toy Story Mania at Hollywood Studios, and I bent down to get her shoe back on and everything. And something happened while I was down on the ground, and when I came up, somebody was bent over like this, just kind of holding his stomach. And people were walking by me, and that was fine because, you know, people don't like you to bypass them in the lines, but you know, it's, if you go like as often as we do, it's no problem. You know, you don't even think about it. But people who are vacationing there, they take that a whole different way. And when I get up and I'm trying to figure out, well, what's wrong with this guy? Because he's not moving, so we go past him. And I begin to piece together from here and other conversations along with people in the line that somebody was trying to bypass him, and he grabbed his arm. He didn't want them to do it. It was like a family of 10 people who were going up to join like the one person that they had in line. And so then the guy who he grabbed turned around and hit him in the stomach. Okay? This is avoidable conflict, right? This is a conflict that you can avoid. You don't need to start a fight about everything, right? So the guy who grabbed the other guy going past him probably has some blame there. The guy who hit him definitely has some blame. The cast members were all over this situation. There were like 10 people in that line in a few minutes. By the time they got to the front of the line, the sheriff was waiting there, took them all off out of the park. So because that's actually assault and battery, you're not allowed to do that, right? So there's some avoidable conflict there. You don't have to cause a fight about everything, right? And we can definitely, as Christian peacemakers, we need to avoid getting in our own dumb fights, right? That's a big part of being a Christian peacemaker, is just realizing when you are doing that, and it happens all the time. I make light of it, but it happens for reasons, right? Everybody in here has a patience battery, right? And just like my phone can be at 100%. Well, my patience battery gets down to about 10%, and I'm kind of a different person, right? There's This is like when Jesus was being tempted, right? He was fasting. His soul was put under stress and duress. And we get that way sometimes. Our resources get depleted, and all of a sudden avoiding dumb fights is a lot harder, right? And so it becomes a test of your character, how much you can do that, and a test of you as a Christian peacemaker, okay? So yeah, be reserved. Just be judicious. I think somebody made that comment earlier about which conflicts you're going to come to. We are going to come to the point where sometimes you do have to have conflict. Sometimes Scripture even says that we need to be in conflict, and that you can't avoid all conflict. But I think I'm just making the point that you can avoid a lot of conflicts. None of these tactics are going to be what you do 100% of the time, right? This is all you using your judgment and your discernment to figure out in a situation, how am I supposed to respond? But there's a lot of practical knowledge that we can get out of this. Yeah, Denzel? Mm-hmm. Yep. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword. That's right. So too much quarreling ends up going to cost you, right? That's something that's you can do a little bit of it maybe and get away with it. But just like driving, right? If you drive recklessly, it might not happen today, it might not happen tomorrow, but at some point you're going to have a wreck, right? You have to be careful. Somebody else had their hand up? Yeah, Calvin. Yep. Right. And does God understand that we're going to get frustrated and we're going to be impatient? Yeah, He does. The Christian walk is about controlling that, right? And that's why we have this idea that we will be not tempted beyond what we can bear, but a way of escape will be made, right? That's a two-part promise. People think of it like it's a one-part promise. Oh, you won't be tempted beyond what you can bear. No, it's a two-part. There will be a way of escape for you. You have to take it. If you don't take it, then you will be tempted beyond what you can bear because that's the situation, right? You have to take that way of escape too. So sometimes if your patience battery is low, you just got to call it a day, You just that's where we started to have, especially when we had 3 younger kids, taking them to Disney. We wanted to go out and have fun and get their actual batteries run down. Like I want my kids to have the fun and all that. But then I want to leave before it gets bad. Leaving before the park before it gets bad means leaving before I run out of patience. So I got to know, I'm at 10%, 15%. I'm starting to get really irritated about that thing that wouldn't have bothered me 2 hours ago. Let's head out. Let's be done now, right? Okay, any other comments before we move on? We've only gotten through 2. This is exactly the pace that I wanted to have for this class. At this rate, we will be doing this for 6 months. That's great. Hands off. Hands off. Whoever meddles in a quarrel, not his own, is like one who takes a passing dog by the ears. Any dog owners in here? Okay, what happens if you grab a dog's ears? They don't like that. I mean, I'd say people don't like that either, right? Like, I don't like somebody to come in, but the dog ear, I mean, it's so tempting because the dog ears are so soft. Like, it's just like, it's amazing how God designed that, and we just love that so much. But yeah, now you talk about a stranger dog, right? You would never do that. You would never see a dog in the street come by and grab its ears, right? But that is what it is like if you get involved in something that's not your own. I call this hands off, but it's also just don't meddle, right? Don't be walking by an argument and insert yourself into it. But we have that temptation, right? We have that tendency. Now, this doesn't mean, that you can't be invited in. Right? There's plenty of situations where we get invited in as a peacemaker. This is not talking about that. This is talking about just getting yourself involved in something that's really none of your business. Okay? Some people just like to stir the pot, right? And so that's what we have to avoid. Of course, there's going to be temptations why we're going to do this. And yeah, this one I think can be an issue in the church too, because we can tend to, how do I want to say it, like we could probably use a lot of work in how we handle conflict resolution in the church, right? And one of these things is this, like we're people who've known each other. A lot of us have known each other for a long time at this point, right? And little things can tend to linger. Like you can remember the thing that somebody did to you 10 years ago because that's how people are. We don't forget that kind of a thing, right? And that we have to be really careful and be good at being hands off. So let's talk some stories. What are some good examples of when you might be tempted to do this, but you really shouldn't, or ways that you avoid doing this? Is this a hard thing to avoid or an easy thing to avoid? What do you think? Okay. Right. Yes. So that's a good point. So let's talk about Moses and the Egyptian, right? What happened with Moses and the Egyptian? He walks by, someone is mistreating a fellow Jew, and Moses kills the Egyptian, right? So in that way, he has kind of broken this. But at the same time, are you supposed to walk by somebody else getting abused and mistreated and just do nothing and say nothing and act like you didn't see that at all? No, you're not really, right? So there's going to be something where we talk about conflicts that you need to get involved in, conflicts that you don't need to get involved in. What do we think about that? How do you decide when you need to get involved in a conflict and not? Yeah. Okay. 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 In a marriage relationship, there's going to be petty arguments and there's going to be serious things. I think we all know that, right? Huh? Oh, you always have to be careful. All of this is be careful. Yeah. This kind of gets into the type of situations where, as Christians, sometimes we don't want to leave our comfort zone, but sometimes we're going to have to, right? Things are not always going to be the most comfortable thing for us to deal with, Just saying, like, sometimes things are going to be messy. We don't want things to be messy, right? We want things to be clear-cut. We want there to be an easy answer, and it's a lot of the time we don't want to enter a situation if you can't see your way out of it. But sometimes we need to trust that God will find that way, show you that way out of it. Yeah, Calvin?
Well, it's also how you do it. Because if you're in a meeting just so that you can learn enough to go gossip
Mm-hmm.
about the situation, that's not helpful. We're not supposed to be gossiping
Right?
about others' conflicts and quarrels.
Mm-hmm.
So intervening, and then the other part is what you alluded to, the person that knows to be right and doesn't do it
Mm-hmm.
is almost as bad as the person that does right.
Yep. Well, it is as bad because it says it is sin. To him who knows what is right and does not do it, that is sin, right?
So if you see a woman being beaten by a man in the streets,
Mm-hmm.
and you are a man,
Yep.
and you just stand there and look and just let it happen,
Yep.
that's wrong.
It's going to be uncomfortable for you to get involved in that, right? But there's really no question about what's going on, right? That is not a questionable situation. You understand exactly what's going on. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, Denzel. Right. Call the police. Yep. 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 Right. Yep. Bertha. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Right. Right. Yeah, Bertha. Yep. Yep. Yeah, we have that. I actually have that coming to talk about, and that's true. You know, the discretion of a man is to make him slow to anger. His glory is to overlook a transgression. I'm not sure if that's talking about overseeing somebody else having evil done to them, or if it's something done to you. A transgression that is done to you, I have the full right to overlook that if I want to. And we would probably say, like we have a saying about that makes you the bigger man, right? We say that. That's probably what that glory concept is alluding to. But I'm not sure that we, like Denzel said, there could be other situations, other factors in a situation. If you walk by two people in conflict, it cannot necessarily be obvious. But at the same time, it's a Christian peace. Like this is not talking really about that. This is talking about someone just getting involved, meddling is kind of like a good way to say it, right? But we are going to talk that there are some conflicts that we should get involved in, and I want to postpone that until we get there. Yes, Steve? Yeah. 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 Yes. Yeah. It's. Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you have to mind your business. That's what this is talking about. I think we kind of got into talking about something that's less common, but the more common situation that this is talking about, the more common kind of conflict that we need to avoid is avoiding, like, just inserting ourselves into other people's business. That's the common everyday thing that will happen, right? I see this, I hear you talking about this, all that kind of thing. I think that's the more common one that this is talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
I've seen the time where a meddler come in between the domestic problem and he became the victim.
Yeah.
Turn on him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what this is talking about. The passing dog, you take it by the ears, now it turns on you, right? It's just, it's your problem now. Okay. Let's see. Don't be provocative. Don't be provocative, okay? So in the same, this is kind of like the flip side to the first one the last one we were just talking about. That's talking about don't insert yourself into somebody else's trouble. This is saying, hey, don't you start your own trouble, okay? And before you say, hey, that's obvious, it's not obvious. We do this all the time, right? We do this all the time. So, do not contend with a man for no reason when he has done you no harm. Do we ever do this? Do you ever just be having a bad day and take it out on somebody else? Does the horn on my car sound a lot more on days that I've not got the patience to deal with all the stuff that I'm hitting on the highway, right? There's so many different ways that this can happen. It's just so, it's like this is almost the definition of avoiding conflict. It's needless. It's wasteful. Another scripture you think about, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, right? There's no need for that. It causes conflict where there didn't have to be, right? And when I taught this in the youth class, I was like, but I'm going to tell you all a secret. This is why. If you ever have a parent that really messes with you a lot, this is why. I'm going to tell you why. And it's like think about if you ever go to a zoo, right? You go to a zoo, you see your favorite animal, okay? But what's it doing? It's just laying on the ground. So what do? You just yell at it or pound on the cage or something. Like you want it to move. That's when a parent picks on you. That's what they're trying to do. They're just like trying to get you to move around. Like, hey, I love you. You're the best thing ever, but you're not doing anything right now. So I'm gonna go and like throw a pillow at you or something like that. Or I'm gonna take the soap and the shampoo out of your shower, and then the next time you're in there, you don't even know where it is. Things like that, little pranks like that. But don't, that what this is talking about is don't pick fights, don't provoke. Men do this with their wives a lot too, I will say, right? Because it's so cute when you get mad until we cross that line. We all know how to go right up to that line and not go over it, But yeah, don't provoke people, and you will obviously avoid conflict. The only reason we're talking about it is because there is a common temptation for it. It's common almost like every day. Yeah, you had something. Yes, poking the bear. Yes, poking the bear. Don't poke the bear. Let's see. Did I have anything else about that? Sometimes, sometimes we can do this because we think we're in the right. Like if I come in and somebody else is watching TV and the game is on that I want to see. It's my TV, it's my house, you've been watching TV for long enough, why don't I just take that from you, right? Like I can kind of force my own way, and it's my right to do that, right? That's how you would think about that. So I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to force my own way on it. Well, that could be true, but it's also provoking something that wasn't there before, and I could have just waited for my kid to get bored with whatever they're doing and get off the TV, right? I mean, at this point, your phone can pretty much show you anything that the TV can. It's just on a much smaller screen. But yeah, there's a lot of common ways that you can do this. We can provoke conflict that we think we ought to be entitled to do. We can provoke conflict thoughtlessly. We can provoke conflict because of maybe past things, like, hey, they thought that was funny a while ago. They'll still think it's funny, things like that. How do we watch out for this? Or does anybody have any stories about this? Like, what do we do to be good at avoiding this? How do we avoid this kind of conflict? A lot of it is valuing others, right? Empathy, that understanding what upsets someone else, and valuing, kind of like you go back to the first one we talked about. If you value prevention of conflict, then you're valuing that counterweights whatever temptation you're feeling to do this, right? And I would say this is a pretty common factor in life. What do people do on the internet? They argue, right? They'll just go on the internet and argue with people about things. We'll argue about sports. We'll argue about politics for almost no reason, just to have something to talk about, right? People will make podcasts about controversial topics because if they do something controversial, then it gets attention, and that's the currency of the realm in the digital age, right? A Christian peacemaker says, even all these temptations that we can have, I'm going to cut through all of them and value the peace, maintaining the peace. Okay, we got like 5 minutes left. Let's try to get through a couple more of these. We're not going to finish this first lesson today. That's fantastic. Avoid evil friends. This is a big one in the jail. This is a big one in the youth. I know y'all are too old to have friends, so it's not a big deal in here, okay? I'm 45 years old. I don't have any friends left. There's no friends, you know. Not like when I was a kid. I don't go over to anybody's house and play anymore. We don't do that, okay? I don't have the energy or the time for that, okay? But for people who still do have friends, avoiding evil friends is a big factor in avoiding conflict. Read this part out of Proverbs chapter 1. You know, my son, let me get this. My son, if sinful men invite you, do not give in to them. If they say, come along with us, let's lie in wait for innocent blood. Let's ambush some harmless soul. Their feet rush into evil. They are swift to shed blood. Avoiding evil friends is a huge part of avoiding conflict. A huge part. In the jail, obviously, this is a huge thing. A lot of people commit crimes because they were with their friends who commit crimes. A lot of people commit crimes because they are with friends who teach them how to commit a certain crime, you know, and then they do it, and then they get in jail and their friends don't, okay? So they should be catching on to something there, right? But we can avoid a lot of conflict by avoiding evil friends, and this can happen in the church, okay? Like to Calvin's point about gossip. You don't gossip by yourself, right? But does gossip happen in the church? Yes, it does. That means that there's friends that you need to be on the right behavior with, right? Even in the church, we can avoid evil friends and avoid the conflict that causes, you know. Other churches, like in 1 Corinthians church, factions, right? I am of Peter, I am of Paul, I am of Apollos. Well, that wasn't just like people like Hogwarts houses, right? That wasn't just people like wearing some colors and hanging out and being friends. Like that was conflict that they were having among each other because of that, right? And so they would kind of group up and form kind of like this evil fellowship of friends that they wanted to, who knows, do whatever with that they were doing with those factions in the Corinthian church. But avoiding evil friends is a huge part of this. Many have fallen because of their choice of friends and their close companions, okay? Think about Solomon's son Rehoboam, right? What happened with Rehoboam? He listened to, he was offered two sets of counsel, right? He was offered the counsel when Rehoboam became king, and he's like, what should I do about taxes? What should I do about, you know, the people and their burdens? And the king's counselors said, hey, lighten them, right? Let up on people, and that will be easier. But they were from that old generation. Rehoboam didn't want that. Who did Rehoboam listen to? Well, he listened to the people that said that what he wanted to do anyway, right? And that was, my little finger will be bigger than my father's waist. You thought he gave you problems. My burdens are going to be huge, okay? And lost his kingdom that way by listening to the wrong friends. You know, even today, it's weird how we're more isolated than ever, but we're also more connected than ever to other people. And we still want that connection. We still want that connection of friends, you know. We still want that, but then you have to be careful about this. Like we talked, I'm just about out of time right now. We talked in the youth class about how to deal with this, because obviously you're not going to go out of the world. You're not going to have, you're not just supposed to not have Christian friends, right? We're supposed to, like Paul said in 1 Corinthians 6, you know, you can't just not talk to people in the world. So how do you do this? How do you manage this? Well, there's close friends and there's friends that are at more of a distance, right? The worldly friends are the ones that we keep more of a distance, that will keep us kind of out of trouble. The closer friends are the ones that you can sound things off of, the people that you will trust as peacemakers. The people in 2 Corinthians, when he says, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers, you'll be yoked with your Christian brothers and sisters and believers. We'll do one last comment. Calvin, you had one?
Well, I'm just going to say, we had a minister that used to tell us, stop being a garbage can for other people. Let them dump all your trash into your ears.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Stop being a trash can
Yeah.
and push those people away. They just got nothing but negative things to come.
Yeah. Okay, I think we'll pick up here next week because we didn't finish talking this. And that was great. Great discussion. Thank you all, everybody.